You think they've forgotten you. Think again. In the shadows, they're still watching, not out of love, but out of obsession with losing control. When you walk away from a relationship with a narcissist, you believe it's over. You assume that silence means freedom. But under the light of Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, everything becomes chillingly clear. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in the world of the narcissist, the darkness is where they hide, manipulate, and rebuild their false self after you, the one who once reflected the truth, have disappeared. A narcissist never truly accepts your absence. They don't grieve the loss of love, they grieve the loss of power. And there is one specific behavior they always engage in after you're gone, a behavior that not only exposes their true nature, but helps you understand why that relationship was never real love to begin with. In today's video, we're going to decode that behavior and reveal why it happens in a way no one expects. Stay until the end of the video, because you won't just learn how to recognize narcissistic behavior after a breakup. You'll also discover how Carl Jung explains the power of the empath, the one who steps out of the shadows and finally lives in truth. When you're gone, the narcissist's primal fear awakens. The moment you stop reacting, no more messages, no more tears, no more emotional energy sent their way, a silent panic begins to rise inside the narcissist. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." And for the narcissist, what they resist the most is the internal void. Do you know the very first thing they do after you walk away? They immediately try to regain control of the narrative. They cannot tolerate the idea that you could live in peace without them. It threatens the very foundation of their persona, the carefully curated mask they've spent their lives constructing. Your silence becomes a dangerous void, an empty space where others might start to wonder, why did that person walk away from them? They don't miss you. They miss the power they had over you. The behavior that a narcissist always engages in after your absence does not come from love. It comes from a primal fear, being invisible. For a narcissist, identity is not formed from within. It only exists through your reactions. And when you no longer react, no longer flinch, no longer revolve around their ego, they become hollow, disoriented, and unmoored. Carl Jung called this an existential crisis. When the ego has no anchor, the long repressed shadow emerges from the unconscious, throwing the individual into inner chaos. That's why the first most instinctive thing a narcissist does when you withdraw from the relationship is this. They create a false version of you in their mind. A version that never challenges them, never leaves, never reflects truth, only exists to feed their need for control. They rewrite the story to protect the cracked mask. You were once someone who truly loved them. But in the narcissist's mind, when you leave without playing the role they scripted for you, you become a threat. So they rewrite your role. From someone who uplifted, forgave, and extended compassion, they turn you into the crazy one, the unstable one, the toxic, the overly sensitive. Carl Jung once warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The narcissist never looks inward. They live entirely through external stories. And in your absence, they need that story to be more convincing than ever, because now they're trying to convince themselves. If they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you. This is the second behavior narcissists always fall into after you disappear. The smear campaign, a full-scale character assassination. They twist the story of you, especially to people you were once close to. Not because you matter, but because their reputation does. They cannot bear the idea of being seen as the one who got left. They must be the one in control of the ending. And if they can't control you, they'll try to control the memory of you. Carl Jung once said something profound. When a relationship ends, the mature heal, the immature seek revenge. Narcissists seek revenge in subtle, silent ways by distorting your image, planting guilt, and making others question you before you even speak a word. You're not just absent, you threaten their entire ego structure. The narcissist doesn't hurt because you stopped loving them. They hurt because you dared to walk away without needing their validation. In Jungian psychology, this is known as a shadow activation, a moment when the part of the psyche they've desperately avoided is forced into confrontation. But instead of maturing, they resist. Instead of reflection, they deflect. Instead of owning their mistakes, they blame. Instead of facing loneliness, they fill it with someone new, usually a safer version of you, someone more controllable. And if the new supply leaves too, they come back to you not out of love, but because you were the only one who ever reflected them so clearly, so deeply, they felt real even for just a moment. Here's what you need to understand. You're not an ex. You're a memory of truth. They never truly forget you. Not because you were perfect. Not because you were the most special. But because you reflected them in the very moment they most wanted to remain unseen. You were the mirror that made them feel small. You stayed silent when they expected you to beg. You stood firm when they waited for you to collapse. And that is why your absence haunts them. Carl Jung said, "You will meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it." To the narcissist, you are the destiny they tried to avoid. The destiny of truth. The destiny of reflection. The destiny of a rising they cannot control. Emotional bridge to the closing section. So if you've ever found yourself wondering, do they miss me? Do they regret it? Did I ever matter to them? Ask a different question. The right question is not, did I matter to them? But rather, am I holding on to someone just because they once made me feel invisible? Your absence is the ultimate test. And the way they behave afterward that is the clearest confession of who they truly are. That's why the narcissist will lie, rewrite the story, play the victim, and flaunt a new partner like a trophy, all in an effort to prove to the world and to themselves, I'm still in control. I chose this. Through Jung's lens. Why do they do this? In analytical psychology, Carl Jung taught that every person carries a shadow, the part of ourselves that holds all we've denied, all the truths the ego cannot face. For the narcissist, the shadow is enormous, chaotic, and violently repressed. They cannot tolerate being small, being wrong, or being abandoned. Because to accept any of that would mean watching the entire false self they've constructed come crashing down. When you're gone, you're not just an ex, you were the mirror that reflected their true nature. And now that the mirror is gone, they have nowhere to project, and so the shadow rises. That's why they will watch you from afar through social media, fake accounts, or by asking mutual friends. Chase after someone new, not out of love, but to find a replacement puppet to continue their false narrative. Launch a victim campaign, spreading pity, smearing your name, and rewriting history to erase your true role in the story. But what didn't they expect? They didn't expect that you're no longer participating, that you've pulled back your emotional energy, the only fuel their ego ever thrived on. Carl Jung called this the awakening. When you step out of the manipulation spiral, you're not just leaving a relationship, you're entering the process of individuation. A journey where you face yourself, heal your own shadow, and become whole without needing anyone else to be your center. In the next section, I'll break down one specific behavior narcissists always repeat in your absence, and why it's the silent confession that they never truly won. The invisible behavior narcissists repeat every time you're gone, reconstructing your image in their mind to avoid facing themselves. When you're gone, the narcissist doesn't let go of you. They internalize you, but not as a cherished memory, rather as a distorted version, reshaped to keep their story running and their ego intact. Carl Jung once said, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." So when they remember you, they don't remember you. They remember a version of you, rearranged to fit their fear and need for control. You loved them deeply. They remember you as clingy. You forgave them unconditionally. They remember you as weak. You left quietly. They remember you as a traitor. Not because that's who you are, but because the truth about you is something they cannot tolerate. Because to accept that you were better, that you left out of self-respect, that you didn't need them to survive, would mean their entire fantasy world collapses. Aught of the narcissist doesn't watch you. Out of love, they do it to confirm you're still orbiting them. One of the most predictable things a narcissist does in your absence is this. They watch you, but not because they care. They watch to make sure you are still emotionally revolving around them. They silently view your stories. They click your posts using hidden accounts. They ask about you through mutual friends. They might even accidentally show up where they know you'll be. Nothing is accidental. Every approach is a test. Are you still reacting? Are you still hurting? Do you still notice my presence? Because if you're still reacting with anger, sadness, or resentment then to them, you're still under their control. But if you remain silent, unaffected, and anchored in your values, that's what terrifies them the most. Because your silence doesn't just wound their ego, it reflects the emptiness inside them more clearly than ever before. The repeating cycle, they'll repeat everything except healing. Carl Jung believed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The narcissist never becomes aware of this truth. They live in a cycle, seeking new supply, idealizing them, hurting them, getting abandoned, returning to the old supply, and continuing to deny the emptiness within. You were just a chapter in that cycle. But if you stop, disconnect, and heal, you escape the fate they can never outrun. And because of that, you become living proof that someone can face their shadow and rise above it. This doesn't just make them feel inadequate, it makes them jealously obsessed. Your awakening is what they can't control. The narcissist doesn't fear being alone. They fear that you no longer need them. They fear that you've outgrown them. They fear that you no longer orbit the story they created. And this is exactly what Carl Jung emphasized in his theory of individuation. Only when we become our whole self do we become truly free. When you walk away from a narcissist, you're not just leaving a person. You're leaving a fabricated world. You're liberating yourself from a script that was never written by you. And in doing so, you become the living antithesis of everything they try to deny. Truth, compassion with boundaries, and love that doesn't come with control. When you're no longer the victim, you become the light they can't look at. Carl Jung once said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You are the one who walked through that darkness, and your quiet, radiant presence after healing is what makes the narcissist feel like they've lost, without anyone needing to say a word. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to call them out on social media. You don't need revenge. Your silence, your growth, your stability is the final sentence they can't undo. Transition to the conclusion. So, if you still find yourself wondering, do they still think about me? Do they still remember me? The answer is yes, but not because of you. Because of the part of themselves they never dared to heal. You are the final chapter they can't write. You are the light they can't bear to look at. And you are the silent ending that forces them to start the cycle all over again with someone else, just to avoid facing themselves. Freedom isn't when they disappear, it's when you stop searching for them within yourself. There's one truth you need to remember. When you're gone, the narcissist doesn't hurt because the love ended. They hurt because their cycle of control has been broken. That's the one thing a narcissist always does in your absence. They reconstruct you in their distorted imagination. They twist reality. They slap labels on you, all to avoid facing the void you once filled with the light of truth. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow is a part of us that can never be separated, and those who refuse to face it will forever be ruled by it." The narcissist chooses to avoid. But you chose to confront. You dared to face what hurt you. You stepped out of a false script to rewrite your own chapter. You stopped performing a perfect role. You chose truth. And that truth is what set you free. If you're in the midst of healing, know this. You're not crazy. You're awakening. You're not weak. You're just beginning to be strong. And you're not invisible. You're simply stepping into a light they cannot tolerate. Your presence here today, still watching until the final minute of this video, is proof of one thing. You are awakening. If today's message touched something true inside you, give yourself permission to continue this journey with us. Click subscribe now, because each week will bring you powerful insights on the psychology of narcissists, the self-healing journey of the empath, and Carl Jung's wisdom through the lens of real life, so you don't just survive, you grow. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing your experience, because your story might just be the light that guides someone still standing where you once were. You were once the side character in a narcissist story, but from this moment on, be the main character in your own healing journey.